Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. How many of you remember that NBC commercial, the more you know, the further you go, right? So you guys should all congratulate yourselves for coming to an expo like this, because the more knowledge you have in terms of your health and your finances, the further you will go in your retirement, right? And some of you may not be retired, but you're looking for information on how to live your best retirement. I know I will be, and I'm also planning for that as well. Who we are, we're Lanskin and Ricaforte. We're an estate planning and elder law firm here locally in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn. We're on 8212 3rd Avenue. And what we've been doing, my wife and I, who's my law partner, for the better part of the combined 25 years, is helping seniors, family, friends, protect their assets, plan for them for the rest of your lives, and then hopefully have assets to pass on to your loved ones when you pass away 100 years from now, right? So, I'm going to ask just to raise your hands. How many people in the room have friends or loved ones or kids that they care about and love? Okay. How many of you who just raised your hands have a power of attorney? For those of you who did not raise your hands, unfortunately, you do not love your friends, your family, or your kids. I joke about that, but it's a power of attorney. And what I'm talking about, and I'm going to piggyback on what the doctors were talking about, is you want to have in place preventative healthcare checklist, right? Things to prevent your health from failing. But in terms of what I'm talking about, you want to have documents in place that will help you and prevent financial tragedy. And not having a power of attorney can be result in a financial tragedy for you or anyone who doesn't have one. If you do not have a power of attorney, what can happen? Well, first off, what the heck is a power of attorney? Does anybody know? Don't be shy. It's the most important document to have while you're alive. You appoint someone, or you can appoint co-agents under a power of attorney to handle all of your financial affairs. Pay your bills, for example. Apply for health insurance, or switch it in open enrollment, for example. Change banks to make it consolidate into one bank, to make it easier for your friends, or I should say your kids, or your loved ones, to help administer your finances. But if you don't have one, then there's only one option if you're not competent to handle your financial affairs. The option is that your family will have to go to court and petition the court to become a guardian over you to handle your financial affairs. Now, why is that such a problem? I don't know if anyone here has been involved in the court process, but even though I'm a lawyer, I'm going to tell you, you want to avoid court at all costs, no matter what it is, okay? But in terms of what we're talking about today, a guardianship can take 6 months to a year, sometimes longer. And the fees are paid from your assets. And the legal fees are not just limited to your attorney. There's court-appointed attorneys. There could be a court-appointed attorney for you, a court evaluator. So, long story short, it's going to cost tens of thousands of dollars, or you can avoid all that by having a power of attorney. Okay? So, a power of attorney, number one and most important document to have while you're alive to handle your financial affairs. What's another document in the event of disability that everyone needs?
Living will?
Say it loud and proud. Healthcare proxy, yes. And that appoints the person to handle your medical decisions if you cannot. Now, we like to go a step further and also have you execute what's called a HIPAA authorization so that your agent can access your medical records, so that you can bring your medical records from your doctors that you have been with for most of your life, in case you do go to another facility or another doctor and they need to catch up on your history quickly, okay? Another document that gets confused with a will, right? It's not a will in the traditional sense, it's a living will. What is a living will? A living will is a document which gives directions as to your end-of-life treatment, or how you want your medical treatment to go in writing. So it's not left up to the proxy to figure out or guess what you may want. In other words, in plain English, you want to be frozen like Walt Disney, or do you want to die in peace if there's no hope for reasonable recovery? Okay? A lot of people fall into the latter camp, but if you want to be frozen, put it in writing. Okay? Everyone probably knows what a will is, right? A will can only take effect after you die. So everyone needs that, but that's not what is most important to you now. Because what we want to do is we want to have your assets, your income preserved and used for you for the rest of your lives. So, what is the biggest concern for all of us, not just seniors, as we age? Healthcare cost, okay? All of us. Unfortunately, at this point in time, it may rise. The statistics for the Department of Aging says that 70% of all seniors will become disabled during their retirement in need of long-term care. Well, I have Medicare. That'll pay for it. I've got supplemental health care insurance through AARP. That'll cover the 20%. It won't cover long-term care, unfortunately. So, Medicare, can pay for doctors, hospitals, prescriptions. Long-term care can be paid a number of ways. One is privately, very expensive. I don't know if any of you have either had parents or aunts or uncles or you yourselves and had to have paid for private home care, or if you were in a nursing home. It costs tens of thousands of dollars. So you can have Medicare, you can have AARP, but it's not going to cover that type of cost. So you either have a boatload of money, right? But then the will that you so carefully crafted that you want to leave to your kids or your friends or your loved ones, but there's nothing left because you had to spend it on your long-term care costs. So, why are you here? Find out information. How can we avoid that? Well, you can also use or purchase what's called long-term care insurance. Depending upon your age and your insurability, it could be an option, may not be. And there's this other thing called Medicaid, right? So care is Medicare. Medicaid can help pay for long-term care not covered by your health insurance. So I've had a lot of clients come to me, a lot of you have come to us, and right away you're asking about Medicaid. So I'm going to give you some information as to becoming eligible for Medicaid. Medicaid has two prongs of eligibility. First is assets, and the other is income. So I don't know where they get these numbers from, but this is what they are. Okay? Medicaid asset eligibility, an applicant cannot have any more than $15,450 in their name. Good luck in New York with that, right? Income-wise, if you're applying for home care, right? I'm just going to give you the total number, and I don't want to get lost in the weeds. It's approximately $879 a month. That first $879 you're allowed to keep. The rest is called surplus income. So, again, where do they get these numbers from? I do not know. But with careful planning, or knowledge on what to do in the future if you ever needed to, believe it or not, even if you're above these numbers, or own real property, you can become Medicaid eligible. So, the last part of, or the other type of Medicaid that I like to just, in plain English, call nursing home Medicaid. In terms of income, predominantly all of your income will go to the nursing home, except for $50 a month, and that will go into a patient account. There are some exceptions if you have a spouse and hardships, if you can make that out. But just to bring us to what the eligibility requirements are, you can see they're pretty low. So a lot of people say, okay, I'm worried about losing my house, or a lien or a claim, whatever it may be, if I'm applying for Medicaid. I'm going to get my house out of my name. I'm going to deed it to the kids. That's an older thought process, because the houses back in the day were not worth as much as they are now. They've appreciated so much that you have to take into account tax consequences. There's all types of taxes, but capital gains tax. We also want to take into account a lot of liability, right? So if you live in the house and the house is owned by one or more of your children and they get sued, guess what? The house is part of that lawsuit. So what do we, as elder law attorneys, typically advocate? Put your assets into a trust. Why a trust? Because the trust can take into account so many different contingencies. Divorce, you sell, taxes. I don't have enough time to go into all the different types of examples or things that we run across during our practice. But the trust, and I'll call it a Medicaid Protection Trust specifically here, accounts for all of that, if properly drafted. And we take into account your wishes. What if it goes in a trust? Can I sell my home? Yes, you can. My perfect example, and I think this lends itself to credibility, my own parents had their house here in Bay Ridge, and they had a vacation home up in the Catskills. And when I first started doing this practice area, I thought it would be prudent for them to preserve their house. We put both houses into a Medicaid trust. And unfortunately, my mother became pretty ill fairly quickly, physically, right? So we had to apply for Medicaid for home care. First, they started giving you only 5-6 hours a day. Then she had a nursing home stint, and now she has 24 hours a day. And that's been going on for the past 5 years, but this all started about a decade ago. If we didn't do the proper planning, and they sold their house, mind you, probably conservatively said there's been about $1 million in medical bills spent on her behalf between nursing home and home care. Now that's an extreme example, and it doesn't happen to everybody, But why do we get auto insurance? Why do we get fire insurance? We hope to never use it, but we get it anyway. So when clients or people such as yourself who are just looking for information ask, when should I do this? Or why should I do this? Look, you have to balance living with planning. Right? So if you're telling me I want to sell my home and I want to travel around the world on a Viking River cruise, God bless you. Guess what? That's good estate planning, right? You're going to spend it down on you. But if you're telling me that I want to preserve my home, or even if I sell it, I want to preserve the funds to pass on to my kids or friends or charity, then this is the type of planning that you need to do. I like to say, don't leave it a sitting duck. If you're never going to sell it, then protect it. If you're never going to spend it, then protect it. And a lot of examples that clients will say to me is, well, I've got this $500,000. That's a good chunk of money. Or I got $200,000 in a savings account. And I'm never going to touch it because unless I need a new roof on my house, or I need I want to do the front, or I need a new kitchen. Well, guess what? Trust money can pay for trust property expenses. So if you put the $200,000 into the trust and you put the house into the trust, that $200,000 can be used to fix that roof. It can be used for the kitchen, right? So it's not. Don't get scared in terms of thinking, oh my God, once I put it into trust, my son or daughter, they've got the key, they locked it up, and there's no way it can be used for my benefit. Guess what? This trust is for your lifetime benefit. Their interest doesn't vest until after you pass away, and hopefully that's a long, long time from now. So the takeaway here is that there's so many things that you can do. Balancing your plan, right? Got to balance living with planning. In terms of protecting your assets, but also enjoying your life. So, in terms of I think what this entire expo is about, and I'll piggyback or go back to, the more you know, the further you'll go. I think that what everyone just needs to take away is it's not the end of the world. I'm not trying to scare you and be a Debbie Downer. Just know your options, and everyone is unique. And if you get the right information, and you can sit down with us, we give a complimentary consultation. You don't have to put all your assets into a trust. You may not put all. You may put none of them in, but at least get the disability documents in place. Everybody needs that. And if a trust is right for you, then get the right information and talk to us about it. We give a complimentary consultation. We're here on 3rd Avenue, 8212. And we have a folder here with some more information for you to learn about. But in conclusion, I just want to thank you all for taking the time to come here. And if you have any questions, we're more than happy to answer.
All right, are there any questions offhand right now? Otherwise, you can come up. And hold on, we'll ask a question. Okay, I'm here. Hi.
I'm just curious. I'm in the process of retiring and like city worker, and I've always covered my husband with his health insurance. So now they're saying he's got to get his own. I called up the agency he works for, and they're telling me he's got to make the phone call to get the application to mail. It's like, we're husband and wife. What does this make sense?
So you automatically think we've been married for X amount of years, right? I should be able to speak on my spouse's behalf. No, you need a power of attorney. And a lot of third parties, we'll call them third party in this sense, the city or whomever it is. Sorry, we got to speak to your husband or unless you have a power of attorney for him. Which is why the power of attorney solves most, if not all, of those types of issues.
Okay, one more question. Anybody have a question? Oh, we do have a question. One of our exhibitors has a question.
I have a comment actually. We're in the finance industry, we're HSBC Bank, and just to relate to what the gentleman was saying, a lot of times loved ones come in and they want to help their parents for whatever reason. Their parents are in the hospital and they want to pay their bills. And what happens is at the bank level, our hands are tied because there's no documents in place already in order to access their account. So it's very important to think about these things and always think ahead, because there might be a time when you are in the hospital and you can't pay your bills and you want them to do a certain thing and our hands are tied and we can't help them. And sometimes, like you said, they don't have the capacity at that point to sign a power of attorney, so they need to go to court. And then that does take at least 6 months. So it's good information that it's given.
Thank you.